All right. Hey, everybody. Let's see. Getting everything all set up here and just moving all these windows around. I got too many windows going on here, but it's all necessary. All right. Let's see. We got Jank in the house. Anipo. All right. All right. Mitsuyan. So, Mitsuyan, if you're not familiar, is a modern Hebrew word meaning, excellent or that's great. All right, and let's see. So I got my glasses. Part of the reason I had to start so late today is because I left my glasses at my father's house last night. Anyways, Hebraico Proficial, excellent. And are you from Brazil? I want to say that I remember you saying you were from Brazil last time, but I might be misremembering, so I apologize if I got that wrong. Let's see. Let me know if the mic is okay, if the camera's okay, and if so, we'll get rolling here. So, all right. So let's see. Last time we continued on, yeah, Brazil. There we go. Okay, so I do remember some things. Excellent. All right. So we got a very international group here. All right. Yeah, I'm just streaming out of my office in Connecticut. I'm a pastor at Northville Baptist Church in New Milford, Connecticut. Audio's good, video's good, awesome. Thank you. I think it was Hebraico Proficial that mentioned to me last time. I got to keep the mic closer to me, so hopefully this is a big improvement. All right, so I'm going to be doing hopefully 2 live streams today. This first one is on Ecclesiastes, and we're just going to continue doing what we've been doing. And then I'm going to start doing. My aim is to do 3 times a week a course that I'm just going to develop with you guys. It's something I've had kicking around in my head for some time, but it's going to be an introduction to biblical Hebrew. But we're going to start with modern Hebrew, and it's based on the conviction that I've developed over the years, particularly in my time at Jewish Theological Seminary, whereby those who have at least some training in modern Hebrew will have a much easier time reading and processing biblical Hebrew. And so it was true for me. It was true for my students who had started with biblical Hebrew and then learned a little modern Hebrew. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, tune in, spread the word. I don't know when I'm going to be doing it, but it's going to be 3 times per week, and we'll see how it goes. Right. All right. Just popping something in the chat here. All right, and away we go. So let's jump into the text. All right, and just get the right window open. So I can't remember where we left off last time. It looks like it was Ecclesiastes 1:8, since that's the last place where I had it. Highlighted. And yes, absolutely, it really does. It's kind of with regard to the comment there in the chat. Hopefully, everybody can see that. It's kind of like, I don't know, if someone were to do a degree in you know you know ancient Spanish or something, or archaic Spanish. Then it would probably help to still learn to speak modern Spanish, even though they're not the same thing, right? And this would apply for any language. So, all right, here we go. So Ecclesiastes 1:8. Why don't we just pick up from there? And reading from the Hebrew, so we get kol hadvarim yeim, which means something to the effect of all things are weariness, right? Or all things bring about weariness, depending on how idiomatically you want to translate. Okay, so kol hadvarim yeim lo yuchal ish ledaber. Okay, so lo yuchal means he is not able, it is not able, it depends on the context. So lo yuchal, it is not able, or he is not able, and then ish would be a person, or literally a man, but I tend to um, you know I tend to translate as a person rather than as just a man. even though, biblical texts would have been androcentric in biblical days. Now there's a wider readership. So, interpretive decision. So, a person is not able, literally, lidaber. And Ronin Torah, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Glad you're here with us learning. So this phrase here, I'm going to highlight it right there. And awesome. Okay. So lo yuchal ish ledaber. It's, in order to translate this smoothly into English, you would have to say, you have to add something or supply something. So a person is not able to express it, or to, the ESV, which I've posted for you down below, a person is not able to utter it. Literally in Hebrew is lo yuchal ish leber. It's a person is not able to speak. Yes, I know my goal is ambitious. Hey, we do what we can, right? So lo yuchal ish leber. So all things are wearisome. A person is not able to utter it. And now, understanding this in terms of the context here, remember that we're coming off of that poem, which extends from verses 3 through 7, or you could even say verses 4 through 7. So just to review it really quickly, to make sure we're remembering what we've talked about last time. All right, so dor holech v'dor ba, generation goes and a generation comes, v'ha'aretz leolam omaret, and yet the earth remains forever, but the earth remains forever. Okay, and then verse 5, v'zarach hashemesh uva hashamesh, and the sun rises and the sun sets, or the sun goes down. Literally, the verb there, uva, means and it comes, but that verb is used, as it is in English, is used broadly. Okay, so v'zarach hashemesh uva hashamesh ve'el mikomo, and to its place, shoef zoeach hu sham. It literally, it pants. Okay, but it hastens to the place where it rises. And the word zoeach there is, the same verb as in vizarach at the beginning of the verse. Okay, and going down to verse 6, we get, holech el darom v'sovev el tzafon, sovev holech ruach ve'al svivotav shav haruach. And so it goes to the south and turns around, you might say, v'sovev, and it turns around to the north. Sovev, it turns and it turns, or round and round it goes. Holech haruach, round and round the wind goes, we could say. Val sevivotav, and on its circuits, shav haruach, the wind returns. And so far, it's just this, every verse is about this circular, sort of thing, where there is no terminus, there is no goal. Okay. All right, and then we go to verse 7, and we get kol hanchalim holchim el hayam. So all streams, or all wadis, go to the sea. Okay, kol hanchalim holchim el hayam ve'ayam enenu maleh, and the and the wind, the sea is not full, maleh. El mekom shehanechalim holchim. So to the place that the wadis go, sham hem shavim lalechet, there they flow again. In other words, the water cycle just never ever ends. Okay, and so then we come down to verse 8, where we get, as we said before, kol hadvarim yigeim lo yuchal ish ledaber. Okay, so all things are wearisome, a person is not able to express it. Lo tisba ayin lirot, the eye is not satisfied of seeing, velo, or sated with seeing, velo timale ozen mishmoa, and the ear is not full of hearing. In other words, once again, there is no goal, there is no end. And the way I read it is, ultimately, there is no purpose from his perspective. All right, so let me pause for a minute here just to see if there are any questions. All right. So go ahead, feel free to share any questions about the Hebrew text, about the grammar. By the way, if you want to chime in, how do you like my black hole T-shirt? My brother gave that to me for Christmas. I like to geek out to both geology and astrophysics videos. So I figure that black holes are equally as philosophical as the Book of Ecclesiastes. So maybe it's the appropriate shirt to wear to such a live stream. So, anyways, so any questions, go ahead, throw them in the chat. I'll give it another 30 seconds, and then, if there aren't any, we will press on. I should have some background music while we're waiting for comments and questions. Let me know if you have any recommendations. All right. Yeah, well, you have. Thanks, Gabs, for chiming in. I see you must be a fan of cats. I noticed your picture there. Are you a cat person? Oh, great shirt. Thank you so much. Excellent. All right. Yeah. All right. So here we go. Let's go on. Okay. Can ask right now. I'm listening while working. I kind of figured as much. So given the time of day, I figured that many people who are tuning in are listening while they're working. So that's totally cool. We'll do. Just drop questions either later in the video or some other time, whenever. Let's see. Why do you think the Targumist inserts the prophets in Final Jeopardy theme song? Absolutely. Okay, so why does the Targumist insert the prophets? And so here, yeah. So the former prophets wearied themselves with affairs that would occur in the world, yet they were not able to discover their outcomes. And here the Targum is very expansive. Okay. Yet they were not able to discover their outcomes. For a man does not have the ability to speak about what will happen after him. Interesting, right? So this seems to um, give us some indication of how the Targum understood the prophets. Whoops, there we go. This statement, a man does not have the ability to speak about what will happen after him. And this is a really interesting topic in and of itself. The question of, the how the prophetic and priestly traditions fit together in biblical theology, over the course of the Bible. Did Ezra really have a place for the prophets? That's something I deal with when I teach on Jeremiah, particularly Jeremiah 28 is kind of like the start of that discussion. I'll explain that some other time, but that whole business with Hananiah. But even in rabbinical tradition, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is, the place of the prophets and their significance, in the rabbinic tradition, after, the fall of the Second Temple. I would love to hear you guys chime in on that. But, obviously, rabbinic Judaism clearly has, holds the priestly tradition, if you will, in very high regard. And the prophetic tradition is a little bit problematic, I would argue, and maybe that's an understatement for Ezra. And so we'll have to talk about that. But that seems to be, there seems to be something about that here. A man does not have the ability to speak about what will happen after him, and no eye can see what will be in the world, and no ear can be filled by hearing the words of all the inhabitants of the earth. This verse, however, in the Targum, according to the Targum, stands in tension, I would think, with what we find at the beginning where this is looked at as prophetic. I mean, if we scroll back for a minute just to glance at the Targum. All right. And notice that it begins the words of prophecy, which Qohelet, who is Solomon, the son of King David, who was in Jerusalem, prophesied. Jank, thank you so much. All right. I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is great. This, this this support really helps me to keep going on here, and I'll read your comment there in a minute. Let me just finish this one on the prophets. Yep. Thank you so much, though. All right, so the words of prophecy, which Qohelet, who is Solomon, the son of King David, who was in Jerusalem, prophesied. And so the Targum is looking at um, Solomon as a prophet. It is reading it's reading Ecclesiastes through a prophetic lens. And as we scroll down, right, as we scroll down and we look at some of the things that are said in it, below, I go down to verse 2, for instance, when by the spirit of prophecy, King Solomon of Israel saw in a vision that the kingdom of his son Rehoboam would be divided. And so this is an instance of, Solomon the prophet, according to, again, the Targumist, seeing things that would come after him. Okay, seeing things that would come after him. And then we go on, right? And he talks about, with regard to the things that would happen after him, he's talking about, the temple being laid waste, right? And then it goes on, verse 3, after he dies, what surplus does a person have from all his toil, right? And then it begins to talk about the world to come. Now, to be fair, it doesn't get into, what the world to come looks like. But it's broaching that subject. And then King Solomon said by the spirit of prophecy. So prophecy is once again introduced, right? And it talks about, there's the good generation, there's the evil generation who will come after them, right? And what we're going to find throughout Ecclesiastes here, sorry, I'm scrolling a little fast here, okay? But just for those who haven't seen it before, you can kind of follow along. As we scroll through. And this translation on the bottom right is my personal translation that I did for Accordance Bible software, as I've mentioned before. So you can kind of see how I've dealt with the Targum, okay, and just kind of scrolling through, because we can't do all of it. You can watch the previous videos before, right? But what we're going to find in some of these later Targums, interestingly, is the idea of messianism, okay? And I want to just take a side note here, or a rabbit trail here, and I just got to switch this up for a minute and go to, here we go. Yeah, accordance functions a little differently on a PC than it does. Jank, even if it doesn't list it toward the goal, it counts in my book. I count it toward the goal. So absolutely. Yep. Thank you so much. And that's so cool. So fun fact, the Nikud counts towards the character limit. No kidding. Well, that's interesting. So that's kind of a good thing in a way, because it forces you to to get used to reading and writing in Hebrew without Nikud, right? Which is a necessary skill. All right. So, and I haven't forgot about your comment there. Just give me 1 second. All right. So I'm just typing in the word Messiah here, and this is for the Targum translation that we produced, for the whole Bible. Now, one of the things I have to mention to you is that Targum English, this module, you can kind of see it over here. Okay, Targum English is Targum Onkelos of the Torah, Targum Jonathan of the prophets, and the Targums of the writings, most of them anyway. Okay, there are other Targums like Targum Neophiti and Targum Pseudo-Jonathan. I'm not going to get into that right now, but if you are familiar, if you have a detailed knowledge of the Targumim, those are in separate modules, which we'll deal with. So the search that I'm doing here is strictly for the Targums English. I'm going to, remove the Hebrew for a minute and just give you a chance to look at some of these verses so that you can see exactly what, how frequently Messiah is mentioned in the Targums and what it looks like. So Genesis 49:10, right? I did a video on Shiloh some time ago. You can see that in my video archives. And notice that Messiah is mentioned there. And let's just go down verse by verse. Genesis 49:11. And why is it not? It's interesting that it's not. Oh, hit. That's why. I see. Okay. The next one is Numbers 24:17. Okay. Right. Jacob and the Messiah of Israel is anointed. He will slay the nobles of Moab and will rule over all mankind. Notice that when Messiah comes here, according to this perspective, when the king arises from Jacob and the Messiah of Israel is anointed. So I would view this as parallelism here. So king is Messiah, Messiah is king, and yeah, so there we go. We see that in Numbers 24:17 though. And you might be familiar with that verse there. This is often quoted messianically here in biblical discussions, interpretations of Numbers 24:17. And notice, let's read the English, right, which is based on the Hebrew. So the ESV has, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. Right, a star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall arise out of Israel. And it shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Seth. Well, it seems like that was just read back into Genesis, wasn't it? Right? Okay. And then we go over to the Targum here. We go over to the Targum, and there we get, I have seen him, but he is not here now. I have seen him, but he is not here now. I have looked at him, but he is not here. When the king arises from Jacob and the Messiah of Israel is anointed, so that scepter business is interpreted messianically. He will slay the nobles of Moab and will rule over all mankind. All right, so let's look at just a couple more here. 1 Samuel 2:10. Okay, 1 Samuel 2:10. The English, which is based on the Hebrew, so I'm reading from the ESV here. Okay. The Lord will shatter, I'm sorry, in the middle column, the adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Now, the thing we have to understand too with regard to this, and Ronin, I see your comments coming up. I'll be sure to get to it. Okay. If you scroll down and look here, his anointed is Mashiach. And so the word Mashiach actually does mean anointed. Okay. So, and it's a royal term. Okay. It's a royal term. But here, Eldon Clem, my colleague who translated this, specifically went with, Messiah in the translation of the Targum. And it's understandable why. But let's pull this up. 1 Samuel 2:10 in the Targum. Okay. The Lord will shatter the enemies who rise up to do harm to his people. The Lord will strike down on them from the heavens with a loud voice. He will execute vengeance of judgment against Gog and the armies of the robber nations who come with him from the ends of the earth. But he will provide strength for his king, and he will increase the kingdom of his Messiah. And so, what this means in terms of the messianic view of Targum Jonathan here in 1 Samuel, you might say, wait a second, isn't this just a literal translation or a reasonably literal translation of the Hebrew? Yes, but the insertion of Gog, which comes from the book of Ezekiel in particular, this is a reference to Ezekiel 38 and 39, would suggest that the Targumist is reading a more developed messianism. Okay. So I don't know if that makes sense. Please feel free to, ask for clarification, and, happy to. I know this is kind of technical stuff here, so let me know if that makes sense, and I'll happily explain it. Okay. All right. Just give you a second for questions, and then I'll get to those others, um, the other comments there. All right. And yeah, Jank, while we're waiting for the other comments, thanks for sharing that. I'm wondering if that was, just looking at when you posted that comment, ad matai tishpetu ol ufnei shaim, right? How long will you endure oppression and the presence of, or you could say the face of, literally, if you wanted to, the presence of the wicked there, right? Will you be inquired of? Will you be inquired of? Selah. I don't know if that's a good T-shirt idea, or if it was a verse you had a question about. I was thinking of you today, actually, while we're waiting for more comments to come up here. Is I still, right here, just proof that I have not forgotten about your request. I have these books on the Psalms sitting on my desk so that I remember to do that live stream on the Psalms that you asked me to do. So I promise I'm going to do it. I've just been so super busy trying to do all these different things, but we are going to do it. Thank you so much for giving that idea. Okay, so let's see. Do we know? Okay, here's Ronin's comment. Do we know of any former prophets that exerted themselves in the way, or do you think these are? Hold on one second. Sorry. Do we know of any former prophets that exerted themselves in this way? Or do you think these are unnamed? Did the Targumist have someone in mind? Just for clarification, are you asking about the mention of the former prophets? I think that's what you were driving at before, when you asked this question. One of the things, while I'm waiting for your clarification there, what I will say is that in Zechariah, there is a reference to the former prophets, but it doesn't mean, the term former prophets doesn't mean what it means in the Jewish tradition. So for those who might not be familiar with this term, allow me to just explain a little bit. So the term former prophets, I got to go back here to, going back to Ecclesiastes, for this is a verse, funny enough, another Hebrew stream, and took it literally and accused me of being anti-Semitic. Yes, I know you're not being anti-Semitic. Hopefully AI learns to read the Bible. Good grief. We have to be so careful about everything we post. I know that's not an issue, but I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It's unbelievable. So, all right. So with regard to the former prophets, when you go over to Zechariah, it makes mention of the former prophets, but in that case, it means the prophets who came before. Okay, just earlier prophets earlier in time. Pardon me. In the Jewish tradition, for those who are not familiar with this, seer versus his perhaps a seer, versus understanding the prophet. Okay, I'll get to that one second. So the Bible, the way the Jewish Bible is laid out, is that you have three main sections. Okay, in contradistinction to the Christian Bible, where you get, what Christians tend to call the law of Moses. Sometimes, the term Pentateuch is used. That would be the first 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. You have we'll call it the law for now, the Pentateuch. Then you have the historical books: Joshua, Judges, Ruth, First Samuel, Second Samuel, First Kings, Second Kings, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and all those. And then you have poetic books, and then you have the prophets. Okay. Um, so what you have in the Jewish tradition, the way the Bible is laid out is that it's in three sections. The first one is Torah, which I don't like to translate that as law, because the word Torah really means instruction. And if you think about it for a minute, when we call uh, Genesis through Deuteronomy the law, right? And then we take a minute to think about its content. We say, yeah, okay, there are laws in there. There's plenty of them, right? Upwards of 600, as Maimonides points out. But what about Genesis chapter 1 and the story of creation, and then the subsequent story of creation, and all of the narrative that makes its way into the Torah, not just in Genesis, but in essentially almost all the books there. And Jewish tradition understands this well, because the midrash, the midrashic commentaries, you have midrash halacha, which is commentary on the legal portions, and then you have midrash agadah, which is commentary on the narrative portions, the story portions. But they're all Torah. They're all Torah. They're all instruction. And so, from a religious perspective, God communicates truth both through propositions, that are laid out in the law, let's say, and through clear, direct commands, we might say. But from a religious standpoint, God communicates instruction through story form too, right? And that's why all of it is considered Torah, and that's why I think the translation law is really not a good translation for the word Torah in Hebrew when referring to Genesis through Deuteronomy. So hopefully that makes sense. But Torah, instruction, is the first part of the Hebrew Bible. The second part is Nevi'im, which is prophets, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then there's Ketuvim, which is the writings. And the Ketuvim includes everything from Psalms and Job, and depending on which manuscript and which version you're looking at, they're going to be in different order. But Chronicles is in there. Oh wait, Ruth is in the Ketuvim. Qohelet or Ecclesiastes is in the Ketuvim, or the biblical or in the writings. So what are the prophets then? If the book of Daniel, right, is in the Ketuvim as well. So what are the prophets? Well, there's two groups of prophets. There's the former prophets and the latter prophets. The latter prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12, the book of the 12. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the book of the 12. The book of the 12 would be the minor prophets. Now, for Christians who know their trusty dusty Old Testament well, then you would say, hey, wait a second, aren't there 13 minor prophets, not 12? And yes, in the Christian tradition, there are 13 minor prophets, but one of them is not listed among the prophets in the Jewish tradition. Does anybody know which one it is? Which of the 13 books considered minor prophets in the Christian tradition doesn't make it into the prophets in the Jewish tradition? I'll give a few seconds because I know there's a bit of a lag here. And I do know some of you are working right now and can't type, but I figured I'd throw the question out there. All right, the answer is, drum roll please. I got to work on getting some sound effects for this sort of thing, but it is very good, Ronin. Excellent. It's Daniel. Daniel is not considered a minor prophet. It's not in the book of the 12 in the Jewish tradition. The reason for this, I believe, is that it wasn't written until after the book of the prophets was closed. Daniel is, by my reckoning, the last book of the Hebrew scriptures to be written. It was written in about 165 BC or so. Okay. And I believe that the prophets, the book of the prophets, was closed by then. So what's in the prophets? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets: Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, etc. And so if those are the latter prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12, what are the former prophets? I mean, if we look at the Christian Bible, wouldn't that be all of the prophetic books? Anybody know the answer to this one? I suspect Ronin does, if Ronin got Daniel right. But what are the other prophetic books according to the Jewish tradition, if we've already accounted for Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the 12 minor prophets? And let's get that drum roll going here. Sorry, making my own effects. The answer is Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. So Joshua in the Christian tradition is a historical book. Judges, a historical book. And then, oh, wait a second, Ruth, which follows Judges in the Christian tradition, is not one of the prophets. And so that's actually in the Ketuvim, in the writings. So Joshua, Judges, and then Samuel is one book, okay, not 1st and 2nd Samuel. It's just Samuel, okay? And then Kings, not 2 books, but 1 book. 1st Kings and 2nd Kings in the Christian tradition is just Kings in the Jewish tradition, okay? So 4 books in the former prophets: Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. And 4 books in the latter prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the book of the 12 minor prophets, the Treasar. And I saw that Ronin posted there about Sefaria. Sefaria is fantastic. Just a free library there. So absolutely. Right. Yeah. So I saw the comment there, Jank, about Enoch. Yeah. So Enoch doesn't make it into the Jewish Bible. The way I see it is because at least twice in the New Testament, it's directly referenced and then probably alluded to a few more times, that first Enoch would have been considered scripture by some anyway, but it just didn't make it into the final, didn't make the final cut, as it were. It didn't make varsity level scripture, if you will, relegated to JV or thirds. All right. So anyways, really quickly, just going back now to our discussion on messianism, just because this is going to come up. I have 1 Samuel 2:10 up, 1 Samuel 2:35, and I'm going to go through this really quickly just so you can see it. You can always go back and watch the video. All right. And we see this term Messiah, Messiah, Messiah. Okay. All right. And so lots here. 1 Kings 5:13 is an interesting one. And he prophesied about the kings of the house of David who would rule in this world and in the world of Messiah. Okay, this is not just about the anointed, a coming king, but this is something really very different, a new age. Okay. All right. Isaiah 4:2. At that time, the Messiah of the Lord will be for joy. Now, notice what Isaiah 4:2 says in the ESV, which is based on the Hebrew. And I'll just, let me, bring the Hebrew and the Aramaic back for you guys in case you want to read along here. Right? So in Isaiah 4:2, you get Bayom Hahu Yehyeh Tzemach Adonai Litzvi Ulechavod. And which, as you can see for yourself, the ESV translates, in that day, the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious. Christians have long understood this as, or let me rephrase that. Many Christians have long understood this as being messianic. The Targum, coming from the Middle Ages, the Targum Jonathan, it's actually late antiquity, really. It's not even the Middle Ages. When these traditions develop. At that time, the Messiah of the Lord will be for joy and for honor. And so even in Jewish tradition, it's understood messianically by some. Okay, Isaiah 9:5, right? It's mentioned here, in this passage that Christians, read every Christmas. Here, the comment, the Messiah, who will increase peace upon us in his days, right? So Messiah is mentioned. Okay. And we just can't look at all these. There's just way too many. But you can see in the Targums, there's a lot of reference to Messiah. Okay. And I'm just going to go book by book here. Jeremiah, what do we find in Jeremiah? Jeremiah 23:5. Okay. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord. So says the ESV. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch. Got your comment, Jank, there. Thank you very much. And please remind me of that. Please do. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch. He shall reign as king and deal wisely. What does the Targum do with it? Messiah. Okay. Jeremiah 39, Messiah. Jeremiah 30:21, Messiah. Okay. 33:13, Messiah. All right. Let's go over to Ezekiel for a minute. Let's see. Oh, we get nothing in Ezekiel. Interesting that the word's not used in Ezekiel, right? But Hosea 3:5, we don't think of Hosea as being messianic. The only time Hosea really comes up as being messianic in any way is Hosea 11:1, which, Matthew deals with there, but it's pretty clear that even Matthew understands that's not what the text originally means. It's what the text is taken to mean later on, okay? That's for another time. Hosea 14:8. The dead will live and goodness will multiply in the land. We're getting some insight into what that will look like, right? Micah 4:8. Now here, in the if you look at the English in the ESV based on the Hebrew, and you, O tower of the flock, hill of the daughter of Zion, to you shall it come, the former dominion shall come. Kingship for the daughter of Jerusalem. What does the Targum do? And you, O Messiah of Israel, who is hidden from before the sins of the congregation of Zion. Okay. Micah 5:1. Okay. Zechariah 3:8. Okay. All right. Hear now, O Joshua, the high priest, you and your fellows who sit before you, for they are men worthy to perform a miracle for them. For behold, I am bringing my servant, the Messiah, that he should be revealed. Okay. Zechariah 6:12, behold the man, Messiah is his name. Okay. So notice that the English of the ESV which is based on the Hebrew, they have the word branch. You can see tzemach up here. There you go. Okay. Where the Hebrew has tzemach, branch, the Targum goes with Messiah. Okay. And the Psalms, right? King Messiah, not there in Psalm 21 of the Hebrew, but it's there in the Targumic translation. 21:7, King Messiah hopes in the Lord. Okay, probably not what the text originally meant. Psalm 45:3. Okay, we'll read the English. You are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace is poured upon your lips. Therefore, God has blessed you forever. Your beauty, O King Messiah, is greater than the sons of men. The spirit of prophecy has been placed on your lips. Because of this, the Lord has blessed you forever. Okay. 61:7. Okay, which happens to mention the age to come. Notice what the Hebrew says here. Endure to all generations, right? Dor vador, como dor vador. Okay. But the Targum takes it a step further. Okay. And it just goes on and on. So this term Messiah throughout the Targums, and you say, hey, wait a second, Song of Songs 1:8 is messianic? Well, according to Targum Song of Songs, yes, in 1:8. So if you look at 1:8 there, in Hebrew, right, the ESV is based on the Hebrew, there is nothing there about Messiah. But you go over to the Targum, and the date of Targum Song of Songs is certainly later. It's definitely medieval. People will disagree about the date of it, but there you go. Okay, so Song of Songs 117:4-5. Okay, notice this is an interesting one. Um, your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies. What does the Targum do? Your two deliverers, right? Not your two breasts, but your two deliverers who will deliver you, Messiah, son of David. Okay, anyways. So we see that that happens. Messiah is there even in the book of Ruth, right? Daniel and his companions and the King Messiah. Okay, let's see where it occurs next. Okay, and of course, Lamentations mentions Messiah. And then Ecclesiastes, Ecclesiastes 1:11. Okay, we're going to see that when we deal with the next verse. But it doesn't stop there. Ecclesiastes 7:24. Okay, so twice even in Ecclesiastes, there is discussion of the Messiah. Okay, and so all that to say, there is the topic of Messiah and the world to come, the age to come, is there throughout the Targums. And we see that the Messianic tradition, we see firsthand here, that the Messianic tradition of reading scripture is not a distinctly Christian thing. It is there in Judaism. Now, what or whom is Messiah? What does the Messianic age look like? Well, that's going to be a very different thing, but we at least see that there's common ground between the two. And I don't mean to suggest that every stream of Judaism reads the Torah messianically, principally, but the Jewish tradition has a lot to say about Messiah. Okay, and so if you're interested in having a discussion about that, we'll certainly be doing that. Ronin has a comment here. When it comes to the Targums, have you explored the relationship between the Memra and Messiah, like in Isaiah 9? Yes, absolutely. So the way the way I always start that discussion, and thank you for bringing this up, is I always start the discussion with, John chapter 1. If the goal is to understand the significance of Memra, um, or I'm sorry, if the understanding is to avoid, sorry, let me, I'm looking at too many things right now. I'm getting sidetracked. Sometimes these discussions are kind of like a black hole. Maybe that's a good reason for my wearing the shirt. So yeah, the Memra discussion, I start with John 1 because it's pretty clear to me that John, who is a Jew, right, a Jew of the Jesus movement, but a Jew nonetheless, is very much drawing from Memra theology. And so, what the Memra is, for now, all I'm going to say is this, is that the Memra is very much akin to the angel of the Lord, Malach Hashem, Malach Adonai. Okay. Now, is there more to it than that? Yes, absolutely. There's more to it than that. And we will discuss this as it comes up in the Targums that we look at. For those of you who are interested in learning something about the Memra and what we're talking about here, do I have it with me or did I bring it to my office at work? Usually I have, bear with me one second. Yeah, I can't find it right now. Yeah, usually I keep all my Targumic stuff here, but I have books scattered all throughout my library right now, throughout my office, and they're all over the floor because I start looking at one thing and I put it down and start looking at something else. So yeah, I don't think it's with me right now. But Chilton and Flesher's introduction to the Targums is absolutely fantastic. And if you're looking for a quick introduction on the relationship between the Memra and the opening of the Gospel of John, you can have a look at the Jewish Annotated New Testament. There's an essay in the back that's, I don't know, 3 pages long or something like that. It's very, very handy. Yep. Yeah, if I recall correctly, Philo calls the Logos God's firstborn. That may very well be. It's been a while since I've looked at that, so I would have to go back and confirm that, but I'll take your word for it for now. Yeah, it's not something I've looked at lately, so I don't want to, I can neither confirm nor deny, right? I have to be honest. So, all right, so let's go back to Ecclesiastes now. How are we doing for time? All right. I see a bunch more people have tuned in. Thank you so much for joining us. Really glad that you're here with us. And if this is your first time tuning in, we are trying to go through principally the Hebrew text. I use the Hebrew text, but we have the English up. So if you don't read Hebrew, that's totally okay. But I also have the Aramaic Targum, the Aramaic translation of Ecclesiastes. And also the Septuagint, the Greek. And sometimes I forget to look at one or the other as we're going through. So that's what the comment section is for, just to keep me on track, because I go down these rabbit holes like messianism in the Targums. So, but let's go back to what was I doing here? We were looking at Ecclesiastes or Qohelet, and I think, did we make it to verse 10 yet? Whoops, sorry, I can't spell. Yep, ECCL. Nope. Why is that? Oh, because I'm using the wrong keyboard here. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to type in. I got my Hebrew open to the keyboard there. Okay. So we looked, let me just make sure. We looked at, going the wrong direction. Oh, we didn't do 1:9 yet. Okay, so so 1:9 says, "What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun." In the Hebrew, ma shehaya, and this ma she, by the way, this is indicative of Ecclesiastes being later Hebrew. This is, something where I don't know if I can bring this up really quickly here, but if we let's see. Yeah. So this phrase ma she, okay, occurs in, it's kind of weird the way it's laying out. Ecclesiastes 1:9, Ecclesiastes 3:15, 3:22, 6:10. So a bunch of times in Ecclesiastes here. And that's really it in the Bible. If we, and just to go here, oh, that's the wrong. Let's see, letters, words, verses. Let me just go back to Ecclesiastes. And just so you can see how scholars look at this, I don't know what I did. I must have jumped into the wrong screen. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you look this up, so the she here, and let me just shrink this a little bit before here. Can I shrink the type size here? Okay. And notice that it's listed as Shah with a doubling of the following consonant, Sheh, Shah, or whatever. So look at where it occurs. Qohelet 3:18, that's Ecclesiastes. Okay. And let's just scroll down to all the occurrences here. And it shows up in Judges, Psalm 124, Psalm 129, the Psalms, which are tricky to date, Lamentations, which is late, Ezra, which is late, First Chronicles, which is late. This seems to be a very late form, okay? Sorry, I don't know why the chat just closed out. I don't know if I can bring that up. Sorry, it's something happened here. I think it said my computer's using too much, too much. Oh, I think I know why here. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just pop that out. Boom. Try it again. Here we go. All right. So hopefully you can see the chat again there. Okay. And then it goes on to comment for the usage, see a share in the relative clause, Juan Muraoka's grammar. But when you look at most of these usages, the date of the texts are suspect. Like Song of Songs, many feel that this is either a late text, okay, either a late text, or it is, or it is a a northern text. Okay, so it might be of a different dialect. All right, but it wouldn't make sense for Ecclesiastes to be a northern text. That does not make sense. Okay. There is a connection to Aramaic, as you can see here down below, but it sure seems that this is an indicator of lateness, okay, generally speaking. All right, Ronin, take care. All right, and thank you for sharing that Targums and Rabbinic Literature, Ancient Literature for New Testament Studies. Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right, so, but anyways, going back to the text now, right? We see ma shehaya hu sheyehyeh, whatever has been is what will be. Uma shenasa hu sheyaseh, whatever has been done is what will be done. Ve'en kol chadash tachat hashamash, and there will be nothing, or there is nothing new under the sun. Here it talks about in this world as opposed to the world to come. Okay. And then we will pick up in, in the next live stream here. We'll finish off verses 10 and 11 and then go on to the next section, which, as you can see in the ESV, is entitled The Vanity of Wisdom. All right, before I sign off, any questions that I can answer? Please, feel free to share there. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Hopefully, I've done an okay job of going through the text with you here today. Hopefully, this is profitable. I know we get off on a lot of rabbit trails, but that's how I learn. So, all right, I'll just give it a minute, see if anybody has any questions. And while I'm waiting for questions to come in here, just a reminder for those who might not have been tuned in earlier, that I will be doing later this afternoon. Probably not too late, actually. I'll probably do it at I'm going to say 3 o'clock, maybe in an hour and a half. Start off this new series on learning biblical Hebrew through modern Hebrew. And it's going to be a different approach to modern Hebrew, but I think you're going to find it to be really practical. So for those who are, interested in supporting this work, because obviously this takes a lot of time, I hate begging, but, for those who are willing to, help support here, you can do so by, purchasing super chats, by helping me meet my goals, becoming a member of the YouTube channel, or becoming a member of my Patreon channel, where all of my videos ultimately go in their unabridged format. And so these live streams eventually are removed from YouTube and, just reduced to shorter videos. And the full video goes on to Patreon, and the support that you provide by becoming a member of my Patreon channel really helps me to continue doing this. When the appropriate amount of funding comes in, I can get rid of this camera here and actually get something a little more professional. But yeah, all the books that I purchase, the ebooks and everything, it is very expensive. And so I appreciate your helping me out here. And, hopefully this is a good use of your time. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate Hebraica. Thank you so much for the added support there. And, there will be a major video dump going to Patreon over the next couple of days. So a lot of these live streams, I'm going to edit them down. So a lot of the ancillary stuff and the dead time gets removed, and the Patreon subscribers will have full access to the whole thing. So you can rewatch these videos as many times as you can. All right. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. I really appreciate it. Tune in at 3 p.m. Eastern today for Biblical Hebrew. And our new course to Biblical Hebrew, where we'll start with modern Hebrew and then transition to Biblical Hebrew. All right. See you later, everybody. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. I really appreciate your support. Ciao, ciao.